What's up guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of NeoVintage News. Now before we get started on the show, I just wanted to give you guys a quick update on some changes that are happening on the channel. Now for you guys who haven't noticed, this episode's actually going up a day early, and I'm sure you're wondering what's up with that. Basically, I have some good news for you guys. It seems like the podcast is finally returning. Now for you guys who didn't know, this channel did have a podcast, and we did about 17 episodes to about late May if I'm not mistaken, and then we took quite the hiatus. And finally, we're coming back, and we're back to talk about all the big stories in gaming. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to catch up on, so I'm excited to do that. And in many ways, it already kind of came back in some small capacity because we did just put out a spoiler cast. Again, if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. It's all about Ghost of Tsushima, so if you want to hear us go into depth about our thoughts, that's also recently gone up on the channel. So NeoVintage podcast is back full blown, and it's going to be dropping tentatively every Monday. I'm hoping for. If anything weird happens and for any reason it has to go up later than that, I'll be sure to check our social medias and I'll keep you guys updated there. But the news will continue to be dropped unimpeded. Just instead of going up on Sundays, I'm aiming to have a Saturday release. So Saturday release on the news, Monday release on the podcast, and then our normal kind of schedule of things during the week. Not to mention, we break the podcast up by subject, so you're gonna have almost daily videos of us, breaking down. So if you like to consume the podcast all at once, you get to do that, and then each of the subjects will be broken down into individual videos if you like to take it in by that. So lots of new content coming for you guys, and I hope you guys are excited for it. So let's just jump right into this episode, and we have a lot of big stories that go over today. I'm really excited about some of these stories. So it seems like we have some confirmation about the Xbox Series S. So apparently an Xbox Next Gen controller package leaked in a picture, and it mentions the Xbox Series X as well as the Series S. For a while now, there's been rumors that a cheaper SKU of the next-gen Xbox is launching, and it seems all but confirmed by this leak. This is most likely what was the rumored Project Lockhart that they talked about, where there was going to be the full next-gen machine, which is going to be the Series X, but there's going to be a cheaper, toned-down version, an option for people, and this maybe seems like it's confirming that the Series S. Now, obviously, Microsoft is taking a very phone-like approach to next-gen, having, the ability to play anything, anywhere. Everything kind of works on every machine, just at different, resolutions and different performance levels. And having a Series S cheaper version falls right in line with that kind of methodical approach to next gen. So everything seems to make sense. I believe this rumor so far. It seems a little bit too not huge of a news to be making up a mock-up of this, so it seems legit, but I'll keep you guys posted as we get more information. And it seems like with the Series X coming out in November, if the Series S is going to come out right by it, I would imagine an announcement coming relatively soon to start the marketing pitch on that, because again, we're already going towards September at this point now, so they probably want to get the ball rolling on that and let them know. And for people who are like, what the Series S is for, that is probably the machine I would get personally. I do fully intend on getting the PS5, and I would like all the next gen machines. However, if there's a cheaper version, I'm probably going to go for that, because again, I'm going to be a multi-platform person, so wherever I can save money, I'm going to do it. And if I want to play the most high resolution experiences, I can, play that on PS5, and then the Xbox Series S with Game Pass and everything like that will have its own value proposition. So I'm excited about the Series S, and I'm hoping that really does come to fruition. Next one's another big story, continued Microsoft news. It seems like Halo Infinite is getting delayed, and this news has been out for a couple days now, but this actually broke after I filmed the last episode, so let's go over this story. So Halo Infinite has been delayed. It was originally slated to launch side by side with the Series X that launches in September, but it seems that it's going to be pushed back to 2021. I'm going to link the tweet down below of the full statement that 343 put out. It's being delayed due to COVID affecting development, and it seems like they're really insistent on hitting people's expectations. This apparently is a very ambitious, a very large game, and they don't want to, fall short of people's expectations. Keep in mind, Halo is about as big as you get, especially in the Microsoft ecosystem. This is their number one first-party offering next to Gears pretty much, and Forza. So when they drop a Halo game, they have to do it right. And so I'm never the person who's angry at delays as long as the time is being used effectively, which it typically is. I got nothing bad to say. Again, no game has ever been made worse by delays. So do what you got to do to release the experience that you want people to have with your game. The only thing is, this really throws a wrench, I feel like, in their next gen launch proposition and stuff like that for Microsoft. The consoles are coming out one way or another in November. And now without Halo, and on top of that, the whole idea that every Xbox experience will be able to be played on your current Xbox if you have one. I have an Xbox One S. Pretty much everything next gen will be playable on my console. So I feel like the value proposition for upgrading is decreasing as the console seems to get closer and closer. And especially with Halo now, I mean, I feel like that's a system seller right there. If there's any reason where it's like, listen, if maybe you're a lapsed Xbox gamer, there's a new machine coming out, there might be a cheaper SKU of it, and guess what? You'll be able to play the next Halo game at a really high performance level. I think that's a decent value proposition for people who are interested in that IP. But with that taken away, I mean, it's tough. And again, I would like to see the specific launch lineup that they have in mind for the Series X and Series S in a list, so I can really judge whether I think it's enough or not. But right now, I think this is a big loss. And obviously, I've read some stuff from Phil Spencer. He understands that fact. He's not naive enough to think that this is not problematic for the launch of the new console. They understand that, but they feel that it would be way more problematic for them to launch a game either segmented or unfinished or whatever with a new console, which I agree with them. A botched Halo game is a terrible look from Microsoft, especially going into this next generation, because in many ways, keep in mind, guys, they're trying to get that traction to make up for last gen. They're not trying to get outsold at such a wide margin again by PS5. So they need to get that traction right off rip. They can't afford another stumble. And so a messed up Halo game is about as terrible as you can get for a next gen launch, especially for Microsoft. So them getting this right and pushing it to 2021 and maybe having something else in its place it might not be the worst choice for them to make. But I'm going to keep my eyes on this story because Microsoft's approach is very unconventional going into this next generation. Again, it's not a forced thing. PlayStation has a very more traditional approach to it, where if you would like to play PS5 games, you need the PS5 console. This is a next gen experience separate from previous gen. It's in a distinct and its own thing, like previous generations were. Microsoft has a different approach. Basically, if you want the super high-end experience, sure, upgrade if you want, but it's not something they're trying to force people to. There's not going to be any Series X exclusives, at least for a couple years. So it seems like a very soft launch, easing people into a next generation, doing whatever people's comfortable with, and basically trying to be the most customer-friendly, customer-facing company of the major offerings in the game industry. So it's an interesting approach. I hope it pays off for them, but I've talked about it at length before, and again, this story, we're going to go into depth about it as well on the podcast that we're filming tomorrow. So if you want to hear more thoughts, me and Steve will chop this up, in the podcast later. But yeah, it's a very interesting story. Now, this is probably the most interesting story of the entire show, and it's basically Apple versus Fortnite, but in many ways it's Apple versus multiple entities in the game industry. So Apple has removed Epic Games' battle royale game Fortnite, which is an absolute behemoth. You guys know who Fortnite is, from the App Store after the developer on Thursday implemented its own in-app payment system that bypassed Apple's standard 30% charge and system. So Apple approves microtransactions and stuff like that in sales in their own system. Epic basically found a different way to launch it internally within the app to purchase things that don't get approved by Apple, so Apple wouldn't get its 30% split off that charge. Because Apple doesn't get its split from that charge in the in-app purchase, Epic was able to offer these things at a cheaper rate, so it kind of botched Apple's whole little mini economy in the Fortnite thing. Epic introduced its own V-Buck payment system that's cheaper and bypasses Apple's approval system. Apple likes to approve everything that's sold on their ecosystem. Then Epic announced that they will be suing Apple, claiming the App Store is a monopoly, if you will. They also released a video comparing Apple to the totalitarian regime in 1984 within the game, and it's also on YouTube if you would like to check it out, and I have it, in this video. Apple seems to be holding firm that this says that they plan to work with Epic to resolve these violations, but it has no intention to create a special arrangement for the company. So this is a very interesting story, because if you guys watched last week's episode, you know that I talked about Microsoft and Apple and their own little issue with the whole xCloud thing and streaming games on their ecosystem, and Apple pushing back against Microsoft and cloud gaming in general. In many ways, people interpreted that as Apple's way of kind of indirectly pushing out competition, or at least stifling competition, as they offer Apple Arcade and probably their own alternative going forward. And it seems now Epic has used this as an opportunity to do something that obviously Apple was going to take issue with as a way to combat Apple's chokehold over their ecosystem. I don't take hard stances one way or another. I'm not here to simp for corporate entities or anything like that. Basically, I don't know how much this is going to hold up in court. Obviously, it's Apple's ecosystem, the iOS store. So how much they can control, I don't know. I feel like this fight happened years ago in the Google ecosystem when people were talking about what they could sell there and what they can include in apps and what they can control in their own ecosystem. And that was a whole thing there too. So this was going to happen regardless as globalism increases, as play anything, play anywhere, do whatever you want, and a lot of competition springing from every different place. Things are becoming infinitely more complex. So these kind of little tufts and conflicts are bound to pop up and don't surprise me anymore. And I told you guys last week that this is by no means the end of this fight. And I kind of isolated it to cloud gaming there. But obviously, this is multiple entities taking up issues that they have with Apple all at once. It would be interesting to see if Microsoft joins Epic in this lawsuit. And it's very interesting to see Epic take such an overt approach to, coming at Apple, especially with the whole, little 1984 totalitarian regime comparison that they're doing here, saying that they're basically, the dictatorship at this point and controlling everything we do and trying to take part of their money. Of course, you could always argue that Apple puts in all the background legwork into creating the App Store, supporting the App Store, hosting these servers and stuff like that. So to some degree, they are owed their cut into people that they host and allow access to their ecosystem. But at the same time, Epic wants its own way. These corporate entities ultimately are capitalistic and are going to try to find a way to make the most money and give away the least money as possible. That's just how business is going to work. So Epic, I don't blame them for trying to push Apple out of this deal, but I don't necessarily blame Apple for being like, hey, you're not going to be in our ecosystem and profit 100% with no splits to us, and we just do all the background legwork. At least that's the perception. So it's really interesting. Again, I'm not an Apple fanboy anymore, so I don't really have any stakes into how this lawsuit pans out. I hope ultimately what's fair is fair, and that ultimately is what conquers. But the courts will be the ones to decide that. I'm by no means a business or constitutional expert or anything like that, so I can't speak as to the veracity of their lawsuit. But ultimately, we'll see how that plays out. And I think this is a story to pay attention to because I don't think Epic's the first company to push back against these massive conglomerates. And I don't think necessarily Epic's going to be the only one in this lawsuit. I wouldn't be surprised if other people join them as well. So this is an interesting story that has had quite a bit of controversy happening lately, which is Control Ultimate Edition and its next-gen upgrade. So Remedy is introducing a new Ultimate version of Control with the game and DLC with a free next-gen upgrade for that version. People who have the original version, though, who bought it at launch or since then, can't get that free update. So the free update is locked to the Ultimate Edition only. So if you bought the original game and Season Pass, you need to spend $40 more to get the version of the game that'll upgrade. Thus, all the controversy for the people who bought the original version and don't want to buy the Ultimate version to be able to have that upgrade. I think it's important to frame all arguments of this discussion. So some people have the argument that, hey, Control is not a brand new game. It's been out for some time now. So expecting a game that came out a year, 2 years ago to have a next-gen upgrade as opposed to games right now that are launching a couple months from launch are completely different things. So Control Ultimate having a next-gen upgrade, considering the fact that it's 2 months away from launch, makes all the sense in the world why that'd get a free upgrade. But the Control original version is not the same thing. It came out some time ago. So what do you think every developer and every publisher is going to go into their back catalog and have next-gen upgrades for games that came out in 2015, 2016 for free? That's their argument. The other argument is, hey, bro, if you spent $60 at launch for Control, you spent, I don't know how much the Season Pass was, but let's say $25 on the Season Pass. So you've already spent quite a bit of money on there. You spent money on DLCs and all this different stuff. Then you want me to spend $40 more to get the next gen upgrade. I mean, at this point, you're hitting what, $100, $115? Like, this is craziness. So it's a tricky situation. Again, I knew the next gen upgrade system was going to be messy off rip, especially once you saw people like EA being like, hey, you need to upgrade at this specific, period of time. And if you don't, then it's a paid upgrade. Like, it's a whole thing. I knew it was going to be a mess because this is uncharted waters, and uncharted waters within the game industry is always bound to have people who monetize things incorrectly, people who monetize things right and are supported by certain swaths of the industry, but other people in a business world don't feel like that's the best way to monetize it. So, I mean, a lot of people are not going to get it right off rip. I feel like Remedy in some ways is probably going to respond to this controversy and probably meet them somewhere in the middle. But yeah, man, paid upgrades are weird, especially with the fact that to some degree they've expressed already, especially in the Xbox ecosystem, everything works 4 generations. They've already said that. The PS5, for the most part, they've said that with supported games, there's going to be backwards compatibility. So if you can play your original Control game on the PS5, you already have the DLC purchased. Like, what is this next gen upgrade? Is it like mass performance differences? Are they just increasing the resolution? Like, I don't understand the difference between next gen upgrades and just putting your disc from last gen into the next gen console and playing it natively. I don't understand what the difference is going to be. Is there going to be some massive resolution difference? Is it the frame rate going to be from 30 to 60 to 120? Like, I don't understand the difference yet, and they haven't talked in depth about that. So I can't speak about how necessary these next gen upgrades are going to be in general, unless they're full re-releasing like Last of Us remastered style things. I don't really understand. So I'm going to keep my eye out for this as new information comes out about it, because I think there's a lot of details that we're not privy to right now about how the next gen monetization strategy is going to be. Like, again, how will a publisher ever be able to re-release a game that they want on next gen for $40 or $60 when the last gen version that is beautiful and runs amazingly ran amazing on last gen, so it's going to run amazing on next gen version can be played natively on the console, or at least emulated to some degree. I don't understand how that works, but again, I'm sure we're going to get more information, especially within the next few weeks and months as we get closer to next gen launch. Again, Xbox seems to be launching in November. I would imagine PS5 is somewhere around there. They're still slated for 2020, so there's only so many months they can choose from, October or November pretty much, and I doubt they're launching in December, so we'll see. We'll be getting information soon. So last story we have here is about a new Def Jam game tease. So Def Jam Recordings recently teased what seems to be a new installment of its Def Jam series on Twitter. Now, the tweet reads, thinking emoji, the streets are saying we need a new Def Jam game, with a screenshot of the character selection screen of one of their games. And this, if they released a new one, would be the 5th entry in the series since Def Jam Fight for New York, the Takeover, which it was in 2006 on the PSP, which was a remake of the Fight for New York version, which I believe is the 2nd game in the series. I believe it goes something like Def Jam Vendetta, Def Jam Fight for New York, then Def Jam Icon, I believe, and then Fight for New York, the Takeover on PSP. So there's been 3 console games, 1 handheld game, and so this would theoretically be a 5th game. I'm super excited about this. For you guys who don't know, I'm a massive hip-hop fan. I'm a massive fan of music in general, vinyl, CDs, whatever. I'm a music connoisseur, if you will. I love that stuff. And so the Def Jam games are really awesome. Just seeing some of our favorite rappers be able to be in a fighting game, I mean, that's a dream come true for me. And that meant a lot to me growing up, just seeing some of my favorite rappers like Joe Budden and 50 Cent and stuff like that be in these games. So seeing a new one would be really interesting, because not only could they include the OGs and have a massive roster in that regard, because again, the Def Jam games back in the day had massive rosters, like 65 players and stuff like that. So it would be cool to see them have like OGs, like you'll have the 50 Cents, you'll have the Games and Rick Ross and stuff like that. But at the same time, have newer rappers be able to participate as well, which I think would be really, really cool, like, Roddy Ricch and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see what they do with this, and I hope this happens, man. But again, with licensing and stuff like that, I'm curious. I don't know who they even choose, and would the newer audiences go well towards it? I don't know. It's hard to say. But again, keep an eye out for this for you Def Jam fans like me who love music, who love games. It's possible we'll get a new one. And again, at the very least, I think in some ways this means that maybe one of the older games are coming back in some capacity in maybe a remastered form or something like that, which I think would be awesome as well, which I'd easily purchase. So new game or old remaster or something like that, either way would be really cool. So I guess we can move on to the next segment of the show, which is games I've been playing. And the only thing I've been playing really is something I actually talked about last week, which is Final Fantasy 13. I'll go into deeper thoughts on the podcast when we talk to Steve about what we've been playing. But I gotta say, so far, I'm really enjoying the game. I went into it with a very open mind, trying not to judge it. Again, my tastes skew very Final Fantasy 6, 7, 9. Those are my favorite Final Fantasy games. That's my taste level. That's what I like. So playing 13 has been very jarring at first, but I'm about 7 hours into the game right now, and I'm feeling that I'm settling into a good groove right now. I'm really understanding the paradigm system a lot more, and utilizing characters to the best of their abilities. I'm understanding the Crystarium upgrade system. So once you get into it, and especially me coming off of 10, I'm really understanding how these newer Final Fantasy games are kind of approaching their battle mechanics and their upgrade mechanisms, and it's starting to click a lot more that I'm understanding, which makes me think that maybe from 13 and I go into the sequel ones, maybe I can jump back into 15 and appreciate it more, maybe. So that's what I've been playing. Again, if you want my deeper thoughts about Final Fantasy 13, I'm going to be talking about it on the podcast tomorrow, so keep your eyes out for that. Game recommendation of the week. So I have two things to talk about. The first one is just a heads up of a game that I actually talked about on a previous episode. It's out now, Swim Sanity. You know I love supporting people of color in the industry, and this is one of the games that I highlighted of someone who developed this, that I think they made an awesome game. And it's out now, so go check that out. I believe Steam and Switch. So I'd be playing it on Switch, so go check that out. Next one is my game recommendation of the week, very standard. And this one, I kind of looked into my back catalog and was like, what's an interesting game that I think people should play that I think goes under the radar? And I thought, oh, the original Saints Row. It's an Xbox exclusive, unfortunately, but if you have a current Xbox console, it is backwards compatible. So if you're able to get your hands on the disc, or you would like to buy it on the store, it's all available for you, and it's inexpensive. It's not a hard game to get. But for you guys don't know, it's an open world action adventure video game series. It's created by Volition, originally published by THQ, but then it started getting published by Deep Silver. So it's really interesting. And then going forward, I think it might be by THQ Nordic. Maybe in conjunction with Deep Silver, but I might be wrong about that. But for you guys that don't know, this is the game that kind of started it all, and there's been multiple sequels: Saints Row 2, the third, 4, where he becomes president. There is Agents of Mayhem, that's kind of like a spin-off and stuff like that. So we've had multiple games, and it's gotten progressively more crazy with each release. But going back to the original Saints Row, in many ways, it's kind of an alternative at the time being offered to like a San Andreas type experience. It's very street oriented, it's very gang, street warfare type games. It's very different. It's a little clunky in terms of the gameplay. I'll say that. It's Saints Row the Third is where they really got into a smooth gameplay experience. 2 is where I feel like they've gotten the story beats right, and the tone of Saints Row I feel like was perfected in 2. But seeing Saints Row and seeing some of those characters very early off in their experience, seeing the person who kind of established the Saints, what the Saints were back then, your protagonist in conjunction with that, and getting jumped into the gang in a very visceral way that's it's more realistic to the gang experience currently than obviously what Saints Row began. And again, it's all fantastical, it's all silly and simplistic look of gang lifestyle. But and again, I'm a civilian, so I can't speak definitively on the veracity of it. But it's interesting seeing Saints Row have a more grounded approach back then to what it ultimately became, introducing the mafia style wealth and aliens and different stuff like that. Just seeing them on the ground floor fighting for territorial disputes and stuff like that, I think it's a lot of fun to be had. It's not a long game, so you can get decent bang for your buck there. Not hard game to find, so I highly recommend you go check it out if you have it on Xbox. It may be on PlayStation now, but I can't speak to that. So unfortunately, oh wait, no. Saints Row, the original, is an Xbox exclusive for sure. So it's not backwards compatible on PlayStation now, unfortunately. So you're gonna have to get an Xbox console in some degree to play this game. But highly recommend it. One of my favorites. I have it in my collection. I have all of them in my collection, and it's something that I go back to every once in a while. So highly suggest you go check that out. So that was this episode of NeoVintage News. Again, keep in mind, the podcast will be going forward unabated, but the new show will be its own distinct thing, talking about sometimes different stories, sometimes the same stories, but offering you guys my thoughts with the visuals and stuff like that. So it's a whole different type of experience, way more chill, way more relaxed, of us just, you know, shooting the shit and just talking over the big stories of the week. So till next time, this was Jabrell. I love you guys. Bye.